Look at this little terrible little shovel. Ridiculous. This is tough to do, guys. Camera. I'm just gonna put in another. I'm gonna shut the video down. I'm gonna put in a good 2 inches. Probably this shovel's so small. Probably about 8 or 10 shovelfuls. Okay guys, just about 2 minutes for the summary so I can share the information and the conclusions and what happened with the stove test. I hope my stove nerds want to hang out for the back 40 minutes and conduct the test with me, but some people have a life, kids, etc. This channel is about sharing information. Okay, 2 minutes or less. The purpose of this final test was to construct the full-size chimney coal stove and add the baffle system. If you want to follow this from the start, 2 or 3 videos back, you'll see the start of the chimney coal stove tests. The baffle system is like what you see up top, where in the first few tests, the chimney was 2 full fire bricks wide, and the baffle system cuts off part, so it's only 1 fire brick opening can allow the gases and the heat, etc. up. And then you stagger the baffle system. So here, like the left side's open, then 3 rows down the right side's open, then 3 rows down the left side's open. Go left, right, etc. Now I think every single cabin, off-grid location, homesteader, whatever, should have this stack through the middle of the house or the cabin. The advantages of this are enormous over just having a wood stove with a metal stovepipe that runs up through the roof. Advantage number 1, this would be the chimney in the middle of your cabin for your wood stove. The area in the back, your wood stove would back up to this stack, and hopefully per an exhaust vent through the back of the wood stove, you'd vent directly into the stack, and the venting of the wood stove would heat these bricks up. Your bricks would then radiate out for 4 to 6 hours, even after your wood stove has burned out. If you have a wood stove that vents up top, that's fine, just not quite as good. You'd go up top for a foot and then, curve hard left into the back of the stack. And then through using the same baffle system to trap heat, the chimney itself becomes a secondary stove in the cabin. When it's really cold, you use the door on this side to create a coal stove right in the bottom of the chimney with this baffle system. That will radiate, from 1 bag of coal, will radiate heat out for close to 18 hours in the middle of a cabin. Hey guys, it's Stove Talk with Matt. I'm just preparing the coal chimney stove for the next test. You can see inside that the coal and the tremendous heat from coal completely cleaned the bricks from about maybe 2 feet up from the start of the bed. All the fire bricks held up, really, really well. Another medium duty. I knew they would have no issue with wood, but I've never used them with coal when the coal has been overfired. The coal fire was completely overfired with too much air. There's no crumbling at all for the fire bricks. And I'm not sure what they're rated. They're regular fire bricks, not soft fire bricks. They're not kiln fire bricks. So one of the nice things about this stove is you just get under here. You can very easily access your, shovel out your ashes. And now I'm going to start creating the baffles. See if I can hold a lot more heat in the stove. The hardware cloth, I finally remember what this stuff's called, held up really well, unbelievably. I guess it's stainless steel. It should go to 2,600 degrees. Let me open that door. So it's just I don't know if you can see that. It's a grid down there. It's that hardware cloth, the cheap stuff from Home Depot, Lowe's, in the Gardener Center, just using for my test. And of course, to do this permanently, we'd have to put in a more permanent grate. But there's easy access to shovel out the ashes. What we're going to do is make the baffles. I guess I'll show it to you when I'm all done. The baffle system will be like this. Okay. So there'll be a 1 brick opening, and then I'll probably go 3 rows, and then open up this side, and then go 3 rows and open this side again. It'll just go back and forth and see if we can get 15 more degrees in the stove. 15 more degrees per brick. Get the bricks up to, if we get the bricks to 160 to 190 for about maybe 25 rows up, that would be awfully nice. Okay, the first baffle is in, then you just continue up normally, and then in another row or so I'll start putting I'll block off the right side, and I'll put the opening on the left. Just alternate all the way up as high as I can go before the test. Alright, I'm not sure what you can see there. Okay, I'm going to stop here for today. I'm not sure how much you can see there. It's a baffle blocking the left, then 3 normal rows, and then baffle blocking the right, and then I'm going to switch to 2 normal rows. Okay, guys, this is the final phase of the test. This is the monster, with full baffles, the full size chimney stack, chimney coal stove. The first phase is a wood fire of small sticks to get everything hot. The draft has to be better established because of the baffles, and we'll add larger sticks, and then we'll start adding coal. Okay, the larger pieces of wood have been added. I'm getting a little bit of smoke. It's not too bad. Everything's still ice cold. Smoke tends to go away. I mean, it's really light. It tends to go away, and that's as well as that smoking, the smoking out the side here. This tends to go away as the bricks heat up. Instead of the smoke wanting to push out, it will draw in. Everything's ice cold. It hasn't even been going 6 or 7 minutes. I put the bigger wood on, and it's not fully caught, so that's probably why I'm getting a little smoke. But everything's, with the baffles, everything's drafting pretty aggressively. It's been just about 3 or 4 minutes more, and the smoke is down to about 0, and there's no more smoke pouring out the side. Well, it's a very small amount. The firebricks are heating up and radiating the heat back, which is absorbing or I guess vaporizing more of the smoke. And as the temperatures get hotter and hotter, that happens more and more. No secondary air, of course. No rocket stove tinkering. I added the first small layer of coal, so you can hear that coal crackling. Ow. Snap, crackle, pop. 3 or 4 minutes later, let's take a look. I think a lot of that coal is lit. It's not just the wood. I just have about a small 1-inch bed. And now that my coal's lit, I'm gonna, look at this little terrible little shovel. Ridiculous. Okay, it's about 8 minutes later. Once you establish a good, 2-inch bed or so, and the flames really start kicking up, then I don't know coal that well. I would just, this flame is mostly from the coal. I would wait. I'm gonna wait another just 5 minutes or so before I add another. I'm gonna do another 3 inches, and then I'm gonna do the big 5 or 6 or 7-inch bed on top of that. I'm gonna do it in stages. Once you get to know these guys that really know their coal stoves, they can get this done a lot quicker. They know exactly when to add this 7 or 8-inch bed, and then some of them, when they knock their air down, they're good for like almost 24 hours. I don't know how. It depends on the stove. Again, I don't know this setup. It's just something I built in the backyard. So, of course, I'm erring on the side of way too much air. I have this you know, once I get my full bed to knock it down later. But for now, I'm just going to give it full air. It can't overfire with only 2.5, 3 inches of. It can overfire when you give it too much air and it's got 8 or 10 inches of coal. That can become dangerous. About 20 minutes, ice cold. Ice cold. Takes a good hour and a half for all the heat to start radiating out. I want to make sure anybody that builds a stove like this or uses a chimney as a stove knows exactly what they're getting into. This is not good for a workshop or a garage. It just takes too long, and it's meant to be heated every day so these bricks stay warm for a month or 2 months at a time. The Russians will fire their masonry stoves twice a day for 6 months in a row with no days off. This is not good for, cannot get short-term heat out of this. However, the reason I'm so interested in doing this, you see where the stool is, you would just back an iron stove up to the back side, put your 6-inch stovepipe through here, and you have the best of both worlds. You have an iron stove that provides immediate heat, heating up your chimney, or kind of what I'm calling a secondary stove. And once that gets hot, you know, it'll radiate out for 4 to 6 hours. Now, the other experiment here is with a full coal bed, a full 10 to 12 inches of coal. You know, the whole thing will stay ridiculously hot for up to 24 hours. The coal itself, up to 12 to 16 hours, depending on how much you choke down the air. I've been letting way too much air through. The coal bed goes down very quickly. I don't know the stove. It takes a month to know your coal stove and how to do that, when to shut the air down, and how far to take the air down. I have to err on the side of too much air. It's a real hassle if this all goes out and I got to pick the coal pieces out by hand. I have no shaker grate, so I have to err on the side of full air, too much air. The last 2 tests, it's been overfired, but the fire bricks have held up well. Okay, just about another 5 minutes. Looks really good. There's no flame from wood anymore. That's all flame from coal. My understanding, guys, if you can see the original bed at the bottom is glowing red, and the more recent bed is flaming blue and yellow. Once, if you have that, you can pretty much keep adding. I mean, glowing at the bottom and the second bed caught flames. I'm going to keep adding. I guess I'll do another 4 inches now on top, and then wait about 20 minutes. The clean burn of anthracite. I've heard testimonies from people that burn anthracite for 25, 30 years, and they've never had a trace of creosote. Nothing. In fact, almost no reason to clean their pipe. You don't get the same sort of fly ash either that wood produces. Anthracite is the hardest coal, I guess, that you can buy. Bituminous is softer. It smokes a bit, and subbituminous is even softer. It smokes. And then there's something called lignite or lignite or something. I mean, that is just a mess. You shouldn't even. I guess that's what burning that crap is what made Pittsburgh look black and London look black. If everybody burned this, there'd be no problem. It'd be clean, and it smells a tiny bit. I'm sure Al Gore would still disapprove, but it's pretty darn clean. Maybe 15 minutes later, from when I added the good-sized bed, when you can let enough air in, it's pretty actually easy to start a coal fire if your system will allow enough air. I mean, that's all flame from coal. There's no wood left in there. Some coal stoves, and who knows what the environmental regulations are now. Maybe that's the reason to build your own. They allow these little slits at the bottom, and if you can. Now, you don't want to keep it like this. Coal will overfire. It gets too hot. It gets dangerous. But at least initially, it's nice to have a system that allows just a tremendous amount of air in. I mean, I could get away with easily get away with that to light it up, or even that. But what the hell? Why not? Why mess? It just lights very, very easily. And then once you get your full bed established, that's when you knock it down. Well, I'm not a coal expert. That's my understanding. Okay, added the final 8 inches, full 8 inches. I don't know how many scoops it was. It was a ton. See, there's not much going on there. It takes a while. Little tiny blue dancers. It takes a while. It's a full 8-inch bed on top. So I guess my total bed it's got to be 12 inches or more at this point. It's almost a full, well, it's 75% of a full 5-gallon Home Depot bucket. It's not going to look like anything's going on in there for probably another 15 minutes. So we'll check it in 15 or 20 minutes. I get good flames and blue dancers, and then with the full bed, that's when I'll back the air down. And we'll see how long we can go with this. I hope we get about 6-8 hours out of it. I'm going to err on the side of too much air because I don't know the stove. That looks very good. Getting some flame on top. The bed overall is as thick as it's going to be. Now, again, that's way too much air, so it is time. It's finally time to knock it down. And I will do, I don't know, I can't do it in the middle where it really should be, but I don't think it's going to make much difference. I've seen people really knock it down with their coal stoves when they get to know their stoves. I will keep it about there. I have no idea. Oh, one last thing. I don't know if you can see. It's so sunny out here. I don't know if you can see with the glare. I think you can. 133, 125. The door's 247, 270. Just above the door, 120. This is about an hour and 15 minutes or so since I started it. Well, maybe more, just over an hour. 112, 140, 109. Wherever you hit a baffle, see it kicks up there to 128. That's what the baffle does. You get certain hot spots. It's just trapping more heat. And see, that's what the baffle's doing. 122 at the very top is pretty good. But without the baffle system, your top's going to be a lot colder than your bottom. So the baffle system's working because the idea is to trap heat, but not really affect draft. The draft should still, and it's still very aggressive. I probably could put another 2 baffles in here before I affect draft. Come back in an hour. Okay, it's only been 45 minutes, and that's just too much air. It's getting too much air. It's too hot. Coal bed will go down. I mean, it's hot, but the disadvantage, your coal bed will go down in a few hours. You'll lose all the coal. So I peeped into it a minute before I just started recording. I knock it down even more and make sure this is tight so it's only getting air from there. I still think that's too much air, but I'm going to keep it at that. We'll check it in 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, it's been 2 hours, almost 2 hours since I put the last coal bed on. I guess I put 7 or 8 inches. I knocked the air down as much as I can. It's actually more open than that because there's some air slipping through behind the bricks there. And there's no mortar here. I mortared these rows just to get the level correct so I could add the door, but it's not, it's getting a lot more air than what it seems there, I'm sure. Because every time I look, it's almost like too hot, Well, it's going down too quickly. Can't put the camera any closer, it'll start to melt. That's on the door. Again with this glare, I'm sure you can see it, but I can't see a thing. So I'm not sure what you can see. I'll just read it to you. The door is consistently over 400. Just below the door, the bricks are 300. 100 and some, 200 on the side. All right, 189. Any sort of brick over 160 is pretty darn good. 170, 180, 140, 177, 208, that's good. 195. Again, where the baffles are pushing the heat, you'll get a spike in the temperature of the bricks. 150, 132, 140, 150, 188, 167, 170, 180, 193, 200 here, 190, getting close to the top, 158, 163. 164 up top is pretty darn good, really is. And then this little, I made it out of dirt mostly, 185. Let's go on the side here. Now these bricks are, you know, completely part of the coal bed. 390, 367, 312. Coal bed would, well, the coal bed is still right about there. That's about the cutoff. 250, 260, 210, 200. One now. Then you get about a foot above the coal bed, it really starts to drop off, like it becomes like the other bricks. 150, 149, 170, 193, 152, 140, 176, 150, 142, 130 up top, 127. Okay, let's talk about the shaker grate. If you were going to do this in a cabin, you need a way to shake the coal bed, of course, or it doesn't work. Absolutely need some sort of jury-rigged shaker grate. Now, what I was thinking is not something like this, but a more significant piece of rebar, and you put it. The grate for this stove is, you know, I'm just using that. Let's see if I can remember. Hardware cloth. I'm using Home Depot hardware cloth. No, it hasn't burned through or anything. It's stainless steel. It should be good to 2,500 degrees. Eventually it would eat through, but it's probably good for a lot more tests than we think. So the bed is, the bed's low. It's probably down here, but let's just assume it's here. You'd put, and it would stick out. You would need it to stick out on each side. This fire brick is very soft. You can drill through it, cut it very easily. With a cheap wet saw. So basically you'd have you know, you'd slide these through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The width of the, again, internal chimney is just 1 brick wide. These are the bricks on the end. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I was thinking initially, if it sticked out on each side and with a hole, you know, again, it's going to be at the bottom of the coal bed, so you're not going to get any smoke or anything out. Figured you could just shake it back and forth, but I don't think that would be good enough. I think you'd have to make something where one side would be tight and the other side would be, I don't know, a little bit loose. So you'd have to shake it back and forth a bit, each one. Not more than a ½ inch, but like if this end was fixed, you know, you'd have to be able to do something like this on one end. So you'd have to have an opening. If you just spun it, or not spun it, if you put it in tight and just shook it back and forth, I don't think that wouldn't be enough. I was thinking it could be enough if you get it in here and then you floss. You come from underneath with like a hook, like a coat hanger that's like a hook, and you floss out all the loose coal. But that's a possibility. But I don't know. I mean, the shaker grate is absolutely necessary. The coal, in terms of these tests, the coal that didn't burn all the way out, I have to reach in here and pick it out by hand, and well, that's no fun. But a coal stove like this, you should be able to keep going for a month or more without having, you know, just keep adding more. So you shouldn't have to put it out and clean it. It should be something that's continuous, or it's at least for a few weeks, or it's pretty worthless. Okay, let me show you what a real shaker grate looks like in a real coal stove. This is a Pittston from Pittston, Pennsylvania. I got, oh boy, it had a small crack in it. Maybe 12 years ago. I got this, and it's called the Magnet. I estimate it's about 1910 or so. And I'll need the flashlight in a second, but that is for the shaker grate. Where's the tool here? Hold on, guys. Hard to do this with the camera. And how does this go on again? Is it like this? Yeah. You put your tool on, and you have to shake pretty aggressively. Shake it back and forth pretty aggressively in the morning before you add new coal. So let's see if we can take a look in here. Can you see that grate there? Just I'll put the flashlight on there and just shake it back and forth aggressively. Much harder than what I'm doing now. Real boom, boom, boom. And your coal will drop down and you shovel it out there. So this tells you this is kind of the maximum air that a coal stove needs to get going super hot. And then you back it down like that. So let me get this out of here. And what's nice about this stove, I hope you can see that. Yeah, you can still see in there. One side, it's kind of just falls forward. You can, that side's rigid, but this side falls forward. For a real, if you know your coals go out and you need to just dump it down, it falls forward. You can dump it down and then push it back. So you need a mechanism like this, or your coal stove, it's not going to work. Because the idea behind these coal stoves is you keep them going for weeks at a time. Oh, one other thing, I've seen some comments in some stove videos, like, where do I get the oval stovepipe? That's just a regular 6-inch stovepipe that you just squeeze it to make the oval. Regular round 6-inch stovepipe. Some stovepipe is a gauge that's very hard to squeeze, but your regular stuff that's sold at Lowe's, Home Depot doesn't sell. The regular, well, none of it's cheap anymore, but the cheapest, you squeeze it down, it'll fit right over tight. And this is the shaker grate. The other side of the shaker grate is for this. Now, is this more for adding coal or cooking? Probably more for cooking. But if you're draft, you might say, well, won't the draft come up in your face? Not necessarily. If you have a really good insulated chimney, I've seen many stoves open from the top where the draft will still want to come out here. Now, not everybody's draft is going to be that good. It could come up in your face at least for a little bit. But some people, back in the day, it might be a lot easier when you dump your final bed of coal, your 7, 8, 9 inches, 10 inches, to just do it from the top. Get a little smoke and gases in the house, and hey, live with it. I don't know. To me, it's more about cooking. But again, depends on how good your chimney system is. If it's just some single wall pipe that gets into a cold attic and it doesn't really pull real hard, you open this up, it's going to come in your face. So people got to know their stoves pretty quickly. Some people with a real nice insulated chimney, stayed warm through the center of the house, everything heats up, they probably could pull it and get very little. It's still going to want to find the hot pipe here. So just depends. Okay, just over 4 hours since I started the test, which started, remember, with the wood fire. And it's pretty ridiculous. It'll melt the camera if I go any farther in there. I don't know where it's getting. Well, I guess I know where. The bricks aren't mortared. I closed the air off entirely. It's still, overfiring. It's still too hot. And I mean, it's getting air. This isn't, that piece of metal's warped. But I closed it almost all the way off, and it certainly isn't. Knocking the temperatures down. So this coal is going to go out 2 or 3 hours before it should. Just because it's drawing too much air. Like, look at that gap right there. That's what's happening. But anyway, this is a success so far. There's only one thing left that it has to do. Let's look at our temperatures. 400, 500 or so in the door, and 320, 210, 190, 200, 215, 218. 204, 170, 169, 200, 180, 212, 187, 194. I mean, that's pretty good temperatures, really is. There's 200 bricks, well, just under 200 bricks, maybe 185, something like that. For this stove to work, for it to be a chimney stove in a cabin, you need 200 bricks. You need this amount of mass, minimum. You need 200, really over 220, 250 bricks for it to work, to have enough little heaters. And the key now is, once that coal starts to go out, maybe it's good that it's going to go out a little bit too quickly. Will this mass hold its temperature? So I'll keep taking the readings tonight, as long as I have a little bit of daylight. And I guess after that you have to trust me, but I'll keep taking the readings. If it holds the temperature and the heat, as this is pretty much going out, that's what really we needed to do. Okay, started the wood fire about 12. It's 6 o'clock, or just after. Let's take a look. Coal bed's pretty far down, but again, it's getting too much air. I don't know how. I've got the darn thing closed off, but it's, getting it, like I said, through the cracks in the bricks and things like that. Let's do the temperature. 220, just above the door. The door is 300. 220, 195, 189, 214, 199. Doing pretty good. Something like when you get an outside brick like this, it's going to be colder. 135, see? Because it's an end. Inside full brick is going to be the warmest. 214. Okay, what is it? 745 or something like that? I don't even know. Well, pretty good. Let's check the temperatures. 290 on the door. 240. You can see it easily now. I don't have to call it out. 182. Okay, 8 something. Can't see a damn thing. 8 something. Alright, not much coal left. Let's see what we got here temperature wise. Well, temperatures are down. Still doing pretty good. 170, that's good. Okay, the back end discussion and conclusion for my 10 to 15 stove nerds that are still here with me. The stack or the chimney was, for each level that was completely open, is 6 fire bricks. So this was about 180 bricks. I think you need 200 or more to have the amount of mass to radiate enough heat, unless you have an extremely small cabin. So if each level of the chimney stack was 6 fire bricks, the outer edge of the chimney stack was 6 fire bricks. That means the amount of room for the gases and the smoke to come up through the center is 2 fire bricks wide. Your base would be 8 fire bricks. The baffle system, it takes the 2 fire bricks, which is the space in the center of the chimney for the smoke, and makes it 1 fire brick with one side open. That's what you can see here in this picture. Each of the 5 baffles in the system would look like the top of what you're looking at here. But this is just the top. It's the final baffle. And then I put my chimney or my 2-foot stovepipe on top to have a little bit extra draw to simulate what a full run of stovepipe would act like in a cabin. So each of the 5 baffle levels are going to look exactly like what you see up top here. It's going to be only 1 brick open. There's going to be 5. If you have an A-frame cabin and you can go up 250, 280 bricks, you can go 8, 9, 10 feet up, then do 7 or 8 baffles. But the baffle is going to look like this. 1 brick is going to allow the gases through. But for every other level, you don't have this. You have a full 2 brick opening allowing the gases through. And then again, it's left open, right open, etc. You understand, staggering it all the way down. Just go up as high as you can. Again, the first baffle I put in, you can see the door here in the picture. It probably goes in pretty high up, probably about 8 to 10 rows, I think, above the door, which means that's a good 15 rows above where the stack, or the coal grate is. It's probably too high. That's just me. I like to have, when I have a wood fire, I like no smoke. And I know when flames are allowed to lap up high, it kills a lot of smoke. You baffle it really, really low down and tight, it'll work. You're just going to get a lot more smoke initially till your coal is completely settled in. The first baffle looks like this again up top. Then I had 3 normal rows. Okay, and that's what I would do initially. Where 3 normal rows on top of something that looks like this as your first baffle is again 2 fire brick openings in the middle. And then after 3 normal rows where there's 2 openings in the middle, then I created another baffle. So it was baffle, 3 normal, which is 6 bricks, 2 more rows of that, and then another baffle. Then what did I do for the 5? I think then I went to 2. I went to baffle, 2 normal rows, baffle. You can get away with that, especially if at the top, if you have you have like a 10-foot, a good run of insulated chimney pipe or double wall stove pipe. You have that extra 8 feet of pipe going out through the roof. That really pulls. So your baffles can be a little bit tighter. I wouldn't go 1 in between. That's too tight. But I would go baffle, 3 normal rows, baffle, 2 normal rows, baffle, 2, and then alternate it 2. If you've got some bullcrap pipe that runs out the side of your cabin at some point and gets ice cold, I probably wouldn't put too many baffles in because it's not going to draw properly. But everybody's system is a little bit different. Okay, about the heat, if anybody's saying, Matt, a lot of your readings 130, 140, 150, you could just put your hand on that. It's not that hot. That's okay. That's normal. Russian stove makers make these 500-600 bricks. You can touch any part of it. It's not that hot. But it's 600 little heaters. That's why you need enough mass here. Now, when the Russians take their test on their big stoves, they don't get bricks above 180 to 200 like I did here. They don't get that hot. It's just the mass is so enormous, it radiates out and it holds its heat for 10 hours, etc. So these temperatures, even though you could touch most of the stove without having to pull your hand away, if you have 200 or more bricks, that's all you need. Again, if let's just say you went up 4.5 feet, it's just not enough mass. It would just... you get it real hot because if you're going to burn coal, but it's just, it would take 2 hours to heat up. It would hold its heat nicely for a few hours. It just wouldn't be enough mass. That's the key with these types of stoves. So if you can get around 200, you're going to have enough mass. It acts as a coal stove from the front, as you saw in the last 3 videos. And then what really puts this over the top as a superior solution is backing in your wood stove from the other side. And having the wood stove, the venting of the wood stove, which is just lost with most people, up a pipe. You're using the venting of the wood stove to heat the mass of the chimney or the stack on the back end. And that's where it's like the best of all worlds. Now, am I going to rebuild this again with a full grate? I don't know, guys. The shaker grate is really important. I don't know exactly how to do that. I showed you. You put the little shish kebab things through your rebar through. You put 7 pieces of rebar through, and it's going to stick out. The rebar is going to stick out 4 inches on each side. This firebrick's very easy to drill into with a masonry bit. It's very soft. Just shaking back and forth like playing foosball with 7 pieces of rebar. And they can be real thin. I mean, you just want to use, you have to create a space. So your coal, of course, for the size coal you're getting, what size nut coal are you getting? So just shaking like a foosball table, shaking your shish kebab things back and forth. Is that going to be enough? I don't know. Probably not. Again, you can floss. You can come with your little coat hanger thing and rake the bottom bed. I think with the floss, you could probably get away with that. I don't know, though. Is it if you had your little shish kebab thing or foosball thing going through your 7 pieces of rebar to make a shaker grate, and then one side you had a half-inch opening, so on the one side you could shake it back and forth, where the other side is a little tighter. Maybe you could have 2 that kind of little tiny slots. The issue there is there any chance of escape of gases? That's really the issue. And it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, that rebar will burn through. It doesn't matter what you use. Everything can burn through if you use this, the shish kebab approach with the tongs going through to make the grate. If it burns through, just slide another one in. A piece of cake, 1 second. It doesn't even matter really how good your stuff is, because you just add another one so easily because you got holes on both sides. But if you've got decent holes, again, these are going to be, the coal bed is going to sit on these, shish kebabs going through to make your grate. And is there any chance of gases escaping out into your cabin? Now, again, I didn't have no PhD degree from Stanford or anything. I don't think so. That's just my opinion for what I would do. I think once everything heats up, your stack going up is so hot, your chimney pipe coming out through the roof is so hot, it wants to draw up. Like how aggressive a rocket stove riser is. Gases aren't going to want to escape out little holes out the side of whatever you construct for a grate. And to be safe, you'd test it. You'd put I'd hope nobody builds all this for nothing. But, 2 of your shaker grates or rebar going through, you have some space to shake it back and forth. You light a flame, a lighter up. Watch the flame get bent and drawn into the hole. If that's the case, there's no possibility of escape of carbon monoxide, gases, nothing. But it's I don't know. I don't want to see anybody build this, and then if the shaker grate doesn't work, it's useless as a coal stove. You need a way to shake down your coal or move the little pieces of rebar back and forth, which creates a gap at the bottom of the coal bed. Well, there is a gap to a degree at the bottom of a regular coal stove, but I looked I've looked at several how they're constructed. They're pretty tight. There is no big hole or anything like that. The shaker grates are protected by a few pieces of metal, so as you slide it back and forth, it's very hard for any gases to escape where you slide the shaker grate back and forth. Again, light a match. The flame, in my opinion, will be drawn in through the hole. No gases coming out. That is an issue. Gases are coming out. This whole thing, as a coal stove, is useless. And you've got all the fire brick and build all of it for nothing. Chances it's going to be an issue, 5%, maybe less, but I don't know. This is lame, but it's better than, if you built the thing and spent all the time, it's better than disassembling it. If you have some gaps where you put your rebar through for your grate for your coal, and on one side there's some gases that want to come out, you always could stuff it with mineral wool. With a few pieces of nail, or that's lame. I know, who wants to do that? But it's better than if you lug all these fire bricks up to a cabin in West Virginia or something. You could still plug it up. That means you have to unplug it every morning and before you shake it down and plug it again. And it's a minute of work that you didn't, it's like plugging it up with mineral wool is like plugging it with a cotton ball that doesn't burn. Mineral wool doesn't burn. And again,
That's only in the 3% chance that any gases are wants to come out of the hole. And again, I guess I'm repeating the same thing. Once it heats up, why would gases want to come out? They're going to be drawn upward. So again, just want to be very clear on that. Don't want anybody to build this and waste their time. I don't know if I'm going to. Someday I'll build the whole thing with the grate and everything, and but I don't know. This is just something I do at the backyard at my own time and expense. So this is probably as far as I'll go with this test for now. Either way, having a stack like this, forget the coal stove aspect of it. Having a stack like this as the first thing you do in a cabin is far superior, even if you're not going to use the coal stove aspect. Backing your wood stove up to this stack is still better for a lot of reasons. Again, all that mass will heat up. You're not losing all that heat and just heating the atmosphere. You can build any sort of even Russian stove or masonry stove on the other side that backs up to the stack, because through the door on the side that you can see, we can easily preheat the stack with newspapers and preheat the stack, which means there's a draft built in for whatever type of Russian stove or masonry heater you wanted to build on the other side, where the gases are pulled up, the gases are pulled down, up, down, etc. You don't need any sort of damper on the gigantic masonry stove you build on the other side that would connect into the middle or the bottom. If you have an open cabin where you could just walk around the other side, open the little $40 high vent door, throw in 3 pieces of newspaper, in some wood, preheat the stack, then that gets you might want to build a 500 brick masonry heater on the other side of the stack that vents into the stack. The stack in the middle of a cabin, first, if anybody, in my opinion, anybody building a cabin, off-grid, whatever, homesteading, right through the middle of the cabin should be the stack, first and foremost. Before you do it, you can get a variety of different wood stoves, plug them into the back. You could, 3 years later, when you get all the materials or money, you could build a giant masonry heater, plug that into the stack. You could make the stack into a coal stove, as we just demonstrated, and then your stack would go up to, 2 feet away from the chimney, and then you'd go double wall stovepipe through the roof as normal. I don't think you'd want to take your stack all the way up through the roof, and you could, but the other issue here, guys, is red brick on top of fire brick. They expand differently at different rates. I don't know. If you did that, you'd need a way to secure. You'd need reinforcement of some kind, that's a whole different discussion. You'd get some cracking potentially. You don't need the real advantage of fire brick as you go up is it's all symmetrical. It all fits together. Red brick doesn't. 2 across is not the same as 1 over. You need tons and tons of cuts with a angle iron or a wet saw. It's so much easier to work with fire brick. But you need fire brick for coal for the first 4 to 5 feet up. After that, you don't need fire brick. Red brick would be just fine. If you go 4 feet with the fire brick, red brick up another 10, 12 feet. But, that's an issue to have a stack that big with things at the bottom that expand at different rates than your red brick. It's eventually going to topple over someday. This is a discussion for another time. It's just something to be very aware of. Fire brick is red brick's like $1.05 per brick or a paver. Fire brick, where I get them, like $2.10, $2.12, $2.15 per brick. Much better to do fire brick the whole way in terms of it being secure, not cracking, not falling over, the need to reinforce it as it gets 8, 9 feet tall, etc. We still should talk about how to reinforce it, what the Russians do with metal, etc. Way too long. Got to wrap this up. Thanks for everybody that's still here. I hope you got something out of this test.